Welcome to Quantum Heart Conversations. I am Shannon Pardini, your creator, bringing forth people who have inspired, mentored, and shapeshifted my experience of following what is the path of the Sacred Heart. You will meet the healers, way showers, luminaries, and those who have mastered what it means to tap into the super conscious expression of self. Enjoy the tools, the self-expression, and step into light with me in celebrating the unique ways each of us taps into what has meaning and heart. Many blessings and enjoy this journey. I am Shannon, Quantum Heart. Hello, soul family. I'm Shannon Pardini with Quantum Heart Conversations. And today I'm with my beautiful guest here, Leanne Venier. And we're going to deep dive on a conversation. Our topic is going to be clarity of vision for conscious creation. Leanne Venier is an engineer, inventor, Eastern medicine physician, international award-winning artist, and former submarine designer. Leanne is known globally as the pioneering expert in the science behind the healing effects of color, light therapy, and energy medicine. Leanne has validated the science of light therapy. Let me hope I say this right. Photobiomodulation for the masses and medical community. And for almost 2 decades has been teaching doctors and lay people around the world how to heal at the root of illness and disease using color, light, sunlight, and quantum healing energies. Leanne has been praised by the medical community as a visionary innovator in healthcare and honored with multiple medical awards for her science-based teachings in clinically proven rejuvenator quantum light therapy inventions. Leanne has a lifelong passion for giving people back power over their own health, healing and anti-aging process to experience true root level healing so that fear-mongering tactics by big pharma and mainstream media are no longer effective. So with that said, I just adore you, dear sister, and I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
It's been in the making for a while. And Leanne, go ahead and introduce yourself to our community.
Okay, besides what Shannon has said, I always feel like my bio goes, it's a very long bio, but the part that isn't mentioned in my bio is the fact that I pretty much everything that I've done in my life, all those different things that I've done, except for the engineering, but everything since the engineering, because the choosing to become an engineer was a logical choice, but everything else has been an intuitive choice where I was guided by my intuition to do these things. And that's how all this creation has come about in my life, with the basically just getting into flow and getting these messages, and this is the next thing you're going to be doing. And even though it was not at all logical in most of those cases, I still, I've learned to trust my intuition and follow that inner guidance. So anyway, with that said, we'll be sharing some of those tips with you, how to tap into that and how to follow your inner guidance.
Beautiful. So again, our topic today is clarity of vision for conscious creation. And Leanne is quite the creator. She actually sent me her story today of what got her started. She has an incredible product called Rejuvenator, and that is actually how I got to know Leanne. I worked at the Bulletproof conference many, many years ago, but I got word of this Rejuvenator, and wow, her red light therapy and the product that she created, it's something in my daily life. I use it daily. I absolutely love it. It recharges my whole body. And so I'd like to talk about the mastery, of creation. And there's no better person than to tap into that. So Leanne, why don't we just get started as, into following our path? And we can even start a little bit with the story you were sharing today.
I think where a lot of people get stuck in life is they feel like I'm supposed to do a job and then I'm supposed to do that job and get my paycheck and just keep doing that job for the rest of my life. And then they may be excited about the job initially, but then they end up not liking the job as much anymore. Some people love their jobs, but a lot of times people just are like, I do my job so I can pay my bills. And for me, I made a decision at a very early age. I don't want to live, you know, basically half of my waking life doing something that I hate doing. And so when I was working as an engineer at Lockheed, designing submarines, I really did not like that job. It was very constraining. I was always very creative as a child, always drawing, writing. I didn't start painting until much later, but drawing, creating, playing, I trained as a classical pianist. So I always had this very creative part of my life, and then always the science and math, because I excelled in math and science and writing in elementary school and high school and whatnot. But so I always had that balance of left brain and right brain. But my belief was that you can't really make any money doing anything that's creative, because, you know, that was kind of what was instilled in me as a child. And anyway, so I did all of that. You know, worked from the age of 11 to, you know, make money to pay for my university, went to university, did all the stuff that was expected of me, started at engineering university, and I loved the math and science classes, but the actual engineering classes, like manufacturing, I was like, oh, this sounds boring. Like, and anyway, so, but you know, you're on that path and you feel like, well, I've invested so much time, I have to finish it. So I did, I got my mechanical engineering degree, ended up getting a job working at Lockheed, and found that I really didn't like working in that kind of environment because it was so limiting and there's so many rules to follow and you have to do things this way. No, we don't do it that way. And I worked with a lot of engineers that were also very black or white. You know, it's black or it's white. There's no gray in between. So that for me was really hard to even have conversations with some of the people that I was working with, because you couldn't talk about anything except for engineering stuff, really. If you did, everything was like, oh no, that's not possible. So I've always been into natural healing. That's kind of the one constant throughout my entire life, is the knowing from when I was a very young child that pills, drugs, pharmaceutical surgeries, they don't help you, they only harm you. So and when my mother would try to get, and I came from a family of pill poppers, so they would pop pills all the time for all kinds of stuff. So my mother would try to give me children's aspirin as a child, and I would say, no, I don't need it. My body will fix itself. So I just knew. I did have a few very bad experiences with Western medicine, which of course then reinforced my belief. The choices that I made as far as getting into engineering were basically driven by left brain logic and what the expectations were. And then I had the realization at, you know, in my 20s that I don't want to throw away half of my life, because, you know, if you think of 24 hours in the day, I don't sleep 8 hours, I sleep 5 to 6 hours, and that's perfect for me. But a lot of people do sleep 8 hours and then you work 8 hours or more. So more than half of your waking life is, you know, doing your job. And it just seemed like, why would I waste half my life doing something that I hate? So anyway, all that to say, when I got laid off from Lockheed, our whole team got laid off. I was the only one that was celebrating. I was like nine engineers that got laid off all in one fell swoop. And I was like, yay, I'm going to travel around Europe. Something I'd always wanted to do, but didn't, because I didn't do the gap year, did all the responsible stuff to make money to pay for university. So anyway, that was where I first started really focusing and manifesting. And I'm like, I have no idea how I'm going to go to Europe, because I don't want to travel there by myself. And I manifested a friend to go with me. It really became clear to me how easy it was just to set an intention. You make a decision about something that you want to have happen. And instead of focusing on, oh, it's never going to happen, this isn't going to, I don't know any people that can travel. I don't know any people that can afford to do this. I don't know any people that could take that much time off, because I went for 7 weeks the first time. So anyway, instead of focusing on that, you focus on, it's like, no, I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to make it happen. I don't know how yet, but I'm going to make it happen. And then things start falling into place.
I have something funny to
Go
add
ahead.
to that. So that's what happened to me. I was working in Western medicine for 15 years, running radiology and doing all kinds of stuff. And the company miraculously, and I was over it, got bought out. And I had an option to stay or go. And I was like, I'm out of here. I'm bouncing.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to Europe. Because I knew I wanted to be a filmmaker, and I don't even know where that came through, but it just started showing itself. And so I went to Europe, and it's interesting to hear Bridge. I'm like, oh yeah, I know that one. So I'm going to let you keep flowing.
Oh, that's giving me goosebumps. So I'm like literally.
Right.
Anyway, yeah. So the first trip I went to Europe, I was there for 7 weeks. My friend, well, somebody I was dating that then became my boyfriend. And I actually, during the first trip, said, I'm thinking about staying here because I love the way my body feels here. I love the energy. And he got very upset that I was already, at the beginning of our relationship was thinking of like staying in Europe. So anyway, I ended up staying in the United States. A friend talked me into running her company for her. Well, she went and did outside PR. So, and that was a lot of fun. It was an upscale catering company. So I did that. And then after a period of doing that, I'm like, now I'm kind of like, I did everything, set up all these systems. And now I want to, revisit the idea of traveling again or doing something completely different. I get bored if I'm doing the same thing, and I've learned everything that there is to learn. And I pretty much set up all these systems and learned everything that there was to learn in that company. It was like 50, 60 employees. But so then I'm like, okay, now what am I going to do? What are my other options? I literally couldn't see anything else other than going back into engineering. I'm like, so I'm going to go back into engineering, and that's basically, I'd kind of forgotten my desire to move to Europe. It was like so far removed. And now it's like almost 3 years later that I've been doing this other thing. And I'm like, I'm going to, that's what I can do. I already have connections. I can easily get a job in engineering. And I was just like, oh, but then I'm not going to be able to take a vacation. I really want to go back to Europe. And so I just decided, well, I'll go take another trip around Europe. So I, before I even start, interviewing and, take a job somewhere. So I take another trip around Europe. And then this time when I get back on the plane, because now I'm coming back I was living in California at the time. I'm getting back on the plane and I'm going to be, now I'm going to start interviewing for an engineering job. And like my life is going back to sucking again. So but that was literally the only possibilities that I could see. It's like either, like work as an engineer, what am I going to do, Anyway, so I come back on that trip. I get deathly ill. I step on the plane in Paris, and I literally, the moment I stepped on the plane, I got so sick. I got like chills, fever. I got, my whole body was aching. I couldn't talk. My whole throat closed up. I felt, and this is back in the day when you could still get, like, fortunately had a whole seat, like a whole row of seats to myself. I was dying. I was so bad. So my body was telling me, it's like, Leanne, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like my consciousness is like, don't even think about going back into engineering. It made you miserable the first time. So I fly all the way back to California. My friend picks me up from the Los Angeles airport. We drive down to San Diego. I'm literally in bed sick for 10 days. I was getting worse and worse. I had never been that sick in my life. Usually if I'd got cold or flu, I'd get over it very quickly. So I'm down for 10 days. On the 10th day, I decided I'm going to move to Europe. I just decided I'm going to move to Europe. I had forgotten that that's what I wanted to do. And then I remembered. And so I went back to sleep. And I woke up the next morning and I was all better. I was like about 90% better. And then I started looking for a flight and I was going to buy a one-way ticket. It turned out it was cheaper to get a round trip, but I bought a ticket the next day and gave myself 5 weeks to sell and get rid of all my stuff. And I don't recommend doing that in 5 weeks. But anyway, yeah, so sold my car, beautiful car. Anyway, I just got rid of everything. I didn't want to deal with putting stuff in storage. I just wanted to go. So I had to get my cats ready. Anyway, long story short, I moved to Europe. I started manifesting all kinds of stuff.
So I have a question.
Yeah,
how did you know you wanted to be in Europe? Was it the first experience there and feeling how your body felt in frequency, or was this a knowing that kind of just kept coming through from time to time?
No, it was the first. I mean, the knowing part was like I really wanted to go to Europe for a long time, but I didn't know why. But when I got there, it literally the first time. Not in London, not in Germany, not in not anywhere in the UK. It was only in France and Italy that I felt that frequency shift. So the first time flying into Paris, I literally could feel the energy change before we even landed, and I felt this whole shift in my energy body, and it was like, zing, like this is home. And then I felt the same thing even stronger when I was in Italy, but I felt it in both France and in Italy. So anyway, but that was what I was like, oh my God, I love it. It feels amazing here. It feels like home. The first time it's ever felt like home. I grew up in Northern Ontario in Canada. That never felt like home to me. I grew up there, but I knew I wasn't going to stay. When I got to Southern California, San Diego, I knew from day one I wouldn't be staying that long. I ended up staying almost 9 years, but anyway, yeah, it's the feeling. It was an instantaneous thing.
And I want to make a note here for our audience, as Leanne is sharing her experience. The body knows all. The body is so intuitive, and it's really when you get those resonance, those frequencies, they feel so pure and so calm. It's just like a true home frequency in you. And, start taking note with that. That is the start of a lot of information of creations that, you're being asked to give, and the people, places, and experiences that want to start lining up for you. So I'll let you keep going.
Well, it is so important, I mean, to follow that, because like I said, that was the first time. And then as soon as I went back to the United States, I forgot that. I didn't completely forget it. I just was like, oh, it seems like such an impossible thing to do. Now that I'm back in the States, it just seemed so far removed. And then, and I had a great time, running my friend's company for that time period, and learned a lot. The thing, it's so easy to forget. It's so easy. You get these messages, you get these, and that's, I tell people, it's like when you get a download, as I call them, you write them down. You write them down until you get in the habit. Like, but even now, like sometimes I'll get information and I write it down, because I know that you think, oh, this is so strong and it's so clear. There's no way I'm going to forget it. And then, a few hours later, you're like, what was that thing? What was that thing that I remembered or thought of, and it's gone. And so yeah, writing it down is really helpful. And it also helps you to remember what it is that's really important to you. And when you get those feelings energetically, to hang on to them, and to, because you've got a tangible thing in this real world, that actually anchors that energy download that you get. So when you put it down on paper, now it's anchored in this plane of reality, and you can access it, from your logical left brain, which is where a lot of people operate from. So it helps to have things like that written down. I have tons and tons of notepads. I always have like notepads that I go back through them. I'll find a notepad from like 3-5 years ago, and all the stuff that I write down, things that I'm, working on or interested in, and I'm like, oh, I've done all that now. Like I've manifested all of that, like everything that was on that piece of paper. And because you forget, it's like, I didn't even realize that. You don't remember how much you've accomplished if you don't have a written record of it. Because anyway.
And I think that is so important. I do think the pen to the paper is so essential in our lives. It is truly, you are jotting down things that you want to do, or, remembering, but just that act, it really just brings a signature into the body.
Yeah.
you know, versus us typing away at the computer all the time. For me,
Right.
that just seems like it just goes into the ethers. But when you do write it down, it has this energy signature where you do come back to it or you get it accomplished.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's also something about the kinesthetic movement of actually moving your hand to write as opposed to typing. Now, not to say that you can't get into flow state typing or voice dictating, you can. It's just there's a stronger connection with the content and the paper. And but sometimes the information comes through so quickly, you like physically, it's hard to keep up with the amount. I mean, I've got some, journals and stuff where I was like, in flow and write, and you can barely read them because I'm trying to write so fast. Not to say that you can't accomplish it with a keyboard or a voice dictation tool. It's just a really good exercise, I think, to be doing it. And the other nice thing about having paper is that you don't then have to turn on a device, which will tend to pull you out of flow or distract you with all the other apps that you've got on there, or get on your computer and there's a million distractions as well. But again, like I said, you can train yourself to do anything. And I've gradually gotten better where I use a lot of voice dictation. I don't do as much typing. I tend to do voice dictation. I get into flow that way. And, it's a matter of training yourself to be articulate enough so the voice dictation understands what you're saying. but yeah, otherwise you read back and you're like, what was I trying to say? What is that? Potato fuzzy? What? Anyway. So yeah, where were we going?
So going back to, again, I want to kind of take the road path that got you to establishing the Rejuvenator. So now you're in Paris, you're living over there. There's
actually, no, when I came back from that trip, then I planned to move to Florence. So I moved to Florence. Yeah, okay, I happened to be getting on the plane in Paris because that trip, the last stop was Paris. So, gotcha. But I spent most time on that trip, more time in Paris. That was the first time that I spent time going around Tuscany and seeing how beautiful it was outside of Florence. So yeah, so when I made the decision to move there, I chose to move to Florence because I love the energy in all of Italy, but Florence was a manageable size city for me. It wasn't that big, not like Rome, which felt a little bit overwhelming, but I love it. But it's just like, for me to move somewhere by myself, it was just going to be too much. So I moved to Florence. Yeah, packed up all my stuff, got my cats, moved there. Didn't speak the language. So I started making connections at the language school and meeting people that way because I didn't speak the language. So I signed up for a language, Italian class for 3 months. There's another story that goes with me trying to get a student visa to be able to go over and study and then turn it into a work visa. And that all didn't happen because of it wasn't meant to be. It wasn't meant for me to then go and get a job there. So I wasn't supposed to. Anyway, that's a longer story as well. But again, it's just like the universe took care. It's like, it was frustrating for me because I couldn't get a student visa because of the fact that I got a letter from the school. They weren't using faxes or email back then. And in Italy, we were here, but they weren't there. So they had to mail me a letter that said I was going to be studying for and keep in mind that this is all happening in the span of 5 weeks. So I just didn't have time. So I contacted them. They sent me a letter so that I could get my student visa. And they said, how long do you want it to stay? And I said, 3 months sounds good. So they sent me the letter for 3 months. And I had all my bank statements and everything. I drive up to the consulate in Los Angeles and I'm waiting in line interminably and finally get to the window where it's like my turn to, give them all my paperwork to get the student visa. And she looks at my letter from the school and she says, oh, well, you're only studying for 3 months. You don't need a student visa. And I'm like, but I want a student visa. Because my plan was to turn, I knew that you could easily turn a student visa into a work visa. So I'm like, what? And she's like, no, you don't need one. And I'm like, but I really want one. And I'm like, I'm telling you, no, it's not a matter of need. I really just want a student visa. And she's like, no. Italians are like this. If you don't tell them give them the exact question, they won't give you the right answer. They'll only answer the question that. So, and I said, but I really, can I get a student visa? And she said, no, I cannot give you a student visa because your letter says 3 months. And that's, if you are only studying for 3 months, you don't need a student visa. I said, how long would I have needed she said, more than 3 months. And I said, so you mean if I had a letter that said I was going to study for 3 months and 1 day, you would be able to give me a student visa? And she said, yes. And I said, okay, thank you very much. And I'm like, there's no point in arguing about it because there's nothing I can do. And I'm like, I don't have time to get another letter. I'm like, I'll make it work. And I did. And it was again, the universe, interjecting like, Leanne, you don't need a student visa to turn into a work visa to become an employee of somebody else. So because of that, that's when I began working exclusively for myself. And I've never worked for another person or another company since then. So again, and it's amazing working for yourself. Oh, I could never go back to working for somebody else. So, but another person, or if I hadn't been aware that the universe, is taking care, I may have gotten so fixated on that. I may have just gotten stuck there. I mean, I see it all happen all the time. People get fixated on one little thing. It's like, here, this is a roadblock. And instead of saying it's a roadblock and going, like I need to go around the roadblock, they will go and bang their head against the roadblock repeatedly, and make themselves suffer over and over and over again because they're so attached to, that's what I'm supposed to do. That's, I'm supposed to get a student visa and turn it into a work visa. That's what I'm supposed to do. Now I have no other recourse. So I immediately am like, okay, that's not the path for me. No problem. Redirect. And I did. It was like, not, and it's not like I didn't call the consulate multiple times. I literally called them 3 times to make sure I had everything that I needed before, because again, I already knew that with Italians, you have to ask the right questions to get the right answers. So if you don't ask enough questions, you won't get all the information. So it's like I knew exactly what I needed to bring. I'm driving all the way and they said the letter from the school, nobody ever said it has to be more than 3 months. And I didn't know that I needed to ask that question. So
right, there's so many possibilities to one thing, and so it's amazing that you trusted your intuition at that point and surrendered and knew it was like, okay, there's another direction.
Yeah. I mean, and that's another really important thing, knowing when to stop putting your energies into one direction. And again, this is something I see over and over again. And I've been there myself, but not in many, many years, because when you get attached to things, that's where you get stuck. So I was very fortunate. My grandmother on my mother's side, who was from Slovakia, I'm half Italian, half Slovak, half Italian, I don't know which half. Anyway, my grandmother, very wise, like living Buddha, Bodhisattva person, just so like calm about everything, but very, also strong and very empathic and altruistic, but also stood her ground when she needed to. So it was just kind of this very good role model for me growing up. Because in my everyday family, there was a lot of turbulence and hostility and aggression and stuff like that. So she was like she was my sanctuary. And so we would, I would go to and spend the weekend with her as often as I could. And so I got to really learn a lot from her. She grew up in a very challenging household as well in Slovakia. And emigrated to Canada. She met, and married. Her husband came to Canada, but she had a lot of challenges in her, just the fact that it was Slovakia under occupation of Russia at the time. And so, you're living in a farmhouse and the soldiers can come in and basically take over your whole home. And then you have to feed them and take care of them. And that's, not only that, and then growing up with like really hostile siblings herself. So that were step siblings. But anyway, so all that to say that she had a lot of experience and knowledge that she could impart with me, because she knew that, you know, like the hostility that I had to deal with from my siblings and, you know, parents. And but she taught me, one of the really important things that she taught me was that when you think that there's something that you want, you really, really want this thing, you know, and this is her telling me as a young child, you think that you really want something to happen, and then it doesn't happen, and you get so disappointed and you're so sad that it didn't happen. It always means that there's something better coming along for you. And it means that that thing, if you had that thing happen, then the other thing wouldn't have been able to happen. Instead of me getting all attached to that feeling of like I've lost something or I'm not getting something I was supposed to, and, you know, fighting for it, I just learned to realize, okay, make space for the thing that's supposed to happen. You know, that's my left brain thinking that's supposed to happen. That's what I want. Instead of allowing, you know, spirit to guide me and let the thing that was really supposed to happen come through. So I started paying attention to that at a very early age, where, you know, things that would, you know, like, oh, I really want this, and then it wouldn't happen. And then I'd be like, okay, wait, you know, that means something else is coming along. And then it would, and it might take, you know, 3 months, it might take 5 months. But then I'd look back and I'm like, yep, sure enough, if I'd gotten that other thing, there's no way that that thing that was supposed to happen would have manifested. So I just started connecting those dots. And that has made my life so much easier in so many ways. Just the realization that, you know, let go. When something isn't happening effortlessly, it's a sign. It's not supposed to happen. You're supposed to redirect. Instead of banging your head against that wall that's popped up in front of you, guess what? All you have to do is take a little step to the right or to the left, and the wall isn't there anymore. And then you go, oh, look, wide open space over here, wide open space over here. This is not where I'm supposed to go. So that's, I think, probably one of the most valuable lessons that I learned early on.
I think also
and why I was able
adding to that is just knowing that it's a frequency mismatch.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's so beautiful to understand it the way you explained it. And then, you know, when we start really leveling up as to understanding what we're attracting around us, you know, you know, we know that it's like, okay, that doesn't feel like it's going to line up, but it's really like tuning into the frequency of what's attracting.
Yes, exactly. And you feel it in your body. That's why when I teach my creative flow training program, I tell people, it's like, you feel it in your gut. You can tell when you're supposed to do something or you're not supposed to do something. It's like literally like a yes that you get when it's like you're supposed to, but you'll have opportunities that come up. And this happens in business, in personal life, relationships, whatever. You have these opportunities that come up. And you can come up with a whole long list of why this is a good thing for you, like a long left brain list. This is good because of blah, 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 blah. But you're like, I don't, but I'm going to do it because the list says it's a good thing for me. But you're getting this like no. And people so often ignore the no, and they do the list. And then they learn the hard way. It's like, that wasn't what you're supposed to do because it just made you miserable for about 5 or 10 years or however long that lasted. So whether it's a relationship or, picking a partner based on a list instead of like, the gut, or picking a job based on the list, oh, great medical benefits. I hear that all the time. Great medical benefits.
Retirement, well, you're going to be medical benefits.
Yeah. Oh my God. Like,
it really is.
Okay,
yeah,
go ahead.
No, it really is, in my world, because I do a lot of energy tracing and seeing the patterns. It's the ego keeping us so safe, and you can feel it. It's a crunchy little feeling, and it is the ego trying to do its job. But at the same time, it's such a big no. If it doesn't feel expansive, if you don't feel the freedom and the flow in it, there's obviously a better direction for you that's going to open up. So it is always funny when you know, the ego's been trained to run towards money and to run towards security and so forth. But that's not what we are. The human is
Right.
a creative, free-flowing, all possibility vehicle. And so it's nice to learn these little techniques and to start listening to yourself and your free form or your frequency, because like Leanne said, when it's a yes, it is so loud and clear.
Yeah, and it's not, there's no question. But again, when you have the big yes and a big list, people often go for the list. It's not so much about, you know, protecting us. It is in our belief system. It's about protecting us. It's about, it's fear. It's fear that controls everything. And the ego is conditioned, you know, our egos are conditioned. It's not something, I mean, we have the ego when we're born, but it's like, it gets from a very early age, starts getting conditioned. Here, these are the important, program, job, security, you know, and especially if you come from parents that went through a depression or grandparents, and you've got that in your lineage, you've got that in your, you know, DNA history. So you remember that whether or not you actually lived through it, you pick up that information at a cellular level, and then it can actually control the way that your ego drives you and says, oh, you don't want to go off and do your own, you know, thing and be an entrepreneur, because who's going to give you a paycheck? Oh my God, like, what am I going to do? How am I going to pay my bills? And
but that's anyways, it's the beautiful thing about it is it's such key indicators of where the path is open and where the path isn't. You know, when we're in our emotions and deep in these lower frequencies, your body's having all kinds of chemical responses. What is that telling you? You know, it's telling you that path isn't the right direction. Right. You know, when you're aligned and calm and feeling resonance and truth with what someone says to you, or, you know, the things you value and respect, it's magnetizing a frequency for you to walk towards. You know, it's opening up a path and a timeline. So it is beautiful, you know, assessing all these areas and knowing again that the body is such a vehicle consistently guiding us consistently to these golden nuggets and the creation.
Right. Well, it's like our biofeedback mechanism, you know, and a lot of people have been deconditioned to pay attention to that information that comes from the body. And that's why people then start getting physical illness, because that's a disruption in the energy system. So the energy body is where illness manifests before it ever hits the physical body. It's in their head at that point because it hasn't manifested at a level that the limitations of technology of Western medicine are able to register that there's an imbalance. You know, I'm also an Eastern medicine physician. So you can get so much information from actually reading the body. You know, in Japanese medicine, I do like a hara reading. You read the actual abdomen for energetic imbalances, and much more sophisticated than the Chinese version of just reading pulses or looking at time. I mean, but you can't get a lot of information from that as well, looking at the face. But they don't even really teach that stuff in traditional Chinese medicine anymore, because it's become a replacement for Western medicine, except now you're going to come and get a diagnosis, get an herbal prescription, and then go on your way, and then come back a week or two later and get another herbal prescription. And then not all of it, but there are many healing that energy, you know, before anything actually is measurable in the physical body. So, you know, you're unhappy, you get stressed, you have an argument with somebody, you can feel that, you know, it lingers. Even if you're like driving your car and somebody almost cuts you off, or they yell out the window at you and you take that on, you feel that energy, and it's just like, you know, like you feel that disruption in your entire body. And you can let go of it, but what happens often is that people hold on to that sort of, you know, that negative energy experience, and then it gets trapped in the energy body. And then you have more and more of those. And then that starts to condition your reality and how you see your reality. It starts to put a filter over everything. You start to create your reality through the filters that we create from these experiences that we either let go of or we hold on to. So, and that's all a choice. You get to choose which experiences and which energy patterns and which energy frequencies to hang on to and which ones to discard because they don't serve you.
You know what I'm tuning into just by you sharing that, I'd love to hear a little bit more about color therapy and light therapy.
The way that I started teaching about color and light therapy, there were a few iterations in my bio before that, but I came back to the United States. I wasn't planning to leave Italy, but I came back 7 years after I moved there because I got in a relationship with somebody here. But really the reason that I came back was because my intuition, my inner voice, whatever, said, it is now time for you to go back to the United States to do whatever the next thing is. Like, it didn't tell me what the next thing was. It's just like, you have to go back to the States now because you need it for the next thing you're going to be doing. And having the relationship and that catalyst and that easy place to land made it very easy so the universe said, here, you know, now come back. And I didn't want to go back, but I did. But I knew that I had to. I knew that I was, and I knew, again, there are many times you get messages, you're supposed to do this thing, and it's like, nope, don't wanna do it. It's like the universe. So it's like, it's not always like my logical left brain saying I want to do this. It's like sometimes the universe is telling you do this, and I'm like, nope. I have lots of those too. I have lots of those. Most of the stuff that I've done, a high percentage of it since I've been working for has been the universe going, do this now. And that seems like a lot of work.
I have a lot of those moments.
But, yeah. And it's like, you know, because it pushes you out of your comfort zone. Now I have to, I'll tell you this it's a very relevant story because it is about the beginning of all this. So I come back to the States. I don't have to work, but I don't do well just sitting at home and going shopping and traveling. So I have to do something. And I was on this whole trajectory. The 7 years in Italy, by the way, I spent 7 years studying all these alternative healing modalities, starting with herbology and then moving up into, you know, Bach flower remedies, subtle energies, Reiki, pranatherapy, and then getting even more advanced in the energy realm, and 7 years of studying alternative healing modalities, which is what, again, goes back to when I was very little. That's the one constant throughout my life. I was already studying alternative healing in California before I moved to Italy. I was studying herbology, but it was so limited, the amount of content that I could get. And again, pre-internet, so I couldn't get, there were very few books anyway. So once I got to Italy and everybody, you know, there's like so much more abundance in terms of people connecting with nature and all of these alternative healing modalities coming from within Europe, you know, Italy, Germany, the UK, lots of information. So that's what I did for 7 years. And then I got to a point where it's like, okay, this is as far as I can go here. So anyway, I come back to the United States. I wasn't thinking of studying Chinese medicine in the United States. I just was like, I know I have to come back. And then within about 2 months of being here, I'm like, I find out about the 2 Chinese medicine schools in Austin, which is where I came back to Austin. I'm like, oh, that instant yes. I go there and I'm like, ding, 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 ding. It's like, go back to school. That's what I need to do. And so I did. And I spent, you know, several years studying Eastern medicine and then also Japanese medicine, Zen Shiatsu, moved to British Columbia, had a healing practice up there, working with cancer patients. Then, because it was raining and miserable all the time, and I don't do well in rainy, cloudy, cold weather constantly, so I came back to Austin. I was either going to go back to Italy or come back to Austin. The universe guided me back here. So then when I came back to Austin, so I'd been doing all this healing work. And while I was in Italy for 7 years, I had patients that they weren't patients, you know, but they were my students that were coming to me for English lessons that then would see whatever all the stack of books that I was studying for the next level thing. And they'd be like, hey, tell me about that. And hey, oh, can you, you know, do something for me? Can you help me with this? So I had like my clinic training for every level of stuff, because my students that were coming to me for English lessons that were then my training ground for the stuff that I was learning. So it was perfect. It was like,
I love it.
Scenario. It's like, but anyway, so coming back to Austin from British Columbia, because you're like, well, you weren't doing the healing work for that long. I had been doing it for about 11 years at that point. So I come back, and I knew that after I worked with cancer patients, and it's like I felt like these people, they're all the same root I mean, not the exact same root problem, but it's a problem in the energy body. It's a problem, disruption. And so working with people from an energy body perspective, and also physical body, it's like, and that I felt like, now I really want to just share this information with a lot of people. So I came back to Austin, and I was like, I started like building a practice, but I'm like, I don't want to work one-on-one doing healing work anymore. I felt like I want to be able to help a lot more people. I only have so many hours in the day, and I can only see so many patients at a time, like in one day. So my feeling was like, I want to be able to help more people. But right now I know that I don't want to see one-on-one patients. So I signed up for a beginner painting class. So again, this is universe, like all the stuff that happened, it was kind of like, I signed up for a beginner painting class because I wanted to be able to have an opportunity to get into flow state. I'd been missing that. I'd been working too much, studying too much, working, studying, not getting into flow. So anyway, I signed up for the beginner painting class at Austin Community College, and you have to start at the beginner level, which was perfect for me because I didn't know how to paint at all. I started, we started doing these exercises, still lifes and stuff like that, which were really boring for me because I was into photography for several years as well. And I'm like, if I want to paint a picture of something exactly like it looks, I'll get out that machine that I have and make it look really good. It's like, I don't need it. I want to be abstract. So fortunately I was in a class where we had a separate room that we could, there were 3 of us that wanted to go and do our own thing and not do these boring exercises. So I learned, how to mix the paint and all that stuff. And it's like, okay, I got the basics. Now I want to be able to paint abstract. So anyway, went off and started painting. So this is how the whole painting thing and the color thing comes along. It's important because this is how it started. So I had a handful of patients that I was doing primarily shiatsu, which I found to be far more effective than sticking needles into people. It's much more labor intensive for the practitioner. But anyway, so I only had one room in the place that I was living. And it was either a treatment room, an extra room. It was either a treatment room or a room where I could paint. So I was finding myself every week, I'm painting, now I want to paint in here, and now I have to do treatment. So I'm like, I have to make a decision because I have one room, and it's kind of a pain in the butt to keep moving it, changing it back and forth. So I'm like, I don't want to do the one-on-one healing work anymore. So that was where then I just stopped doing it. I stopped doing it because I was finding that people that were coming to me, and they're going, oh my God, you've helped me so much. And now I've told my brother about you, or my sister, or my mother, or whoever. And every time I'd be like, oh, no, don't tell me. And I knew when that was happening, it's like, that's not fair to my patients. I don't want to do something for money. I want to do something because I'm passionate about it. So anyway, that was where the decision came from. But again, all of these are me being able to listen to my gut instead of, logical left brain, establish a practice and get lots of patients. And it's like all this stuff. And it's like, so anyway, I started painting at the end of that class. So this is a bunch of bizarre things happen. So I'm trying to paint in this other room with these other 2. They were already well-established painters. They'd been painting for many, many years. One was an established artist out in California who had just moved to Austin. She took the beginner painting class just to meet people that were interested in painting. And at the community college, you can't just jump to advanced painting. You have to do 101, then 201, then 301. So she had to sign up for beginner painting. So I started painting at home because of the fact that even though we were in a separate room, the teacher would come around and check on us. And she wasn't an abstract painter, so she didn't really know the first thing about giving guidance. She'd be like, don't you want to put that in the middle? That like, like nothing about composition. So anyway, so I started painting at home, and I started because I couldn't get into flow state. I could start getting into flow state in the classroom, you know, and it was a 3-hour class. I could just start getting into it, and then she'd come around and like start, and you start talking in left brain, you know, language will pull you out of flow. You can get to a point where you can be very fluent and go back and forth, which I did get to that level, and have taught many people how to do that. But at the time, I couldn't get there and then stay there. So anybody coming and talking to me just pulled me right out of flow. So I started painting at home, where I could have like 0 interruptions, started creating abstracts on my own at home. And then at the end of that class, this was in 2006, so this is at the very end of 2006. Today's the anniversary, actually, of the day that we discovered. Today's the anniversary. We did this one-night exhibition for the beginner painting class, which alone is also this completely unheard of thing. So we put it together. We went to the museum and said, hey, can we have a place where we can do this one-night exhibition? They gave us the whole front room of the museum downtown. So like the whole beautiful front room, windows all around. Anyway, again, all these things that you would never be able to plan something like this. It was just all these impossible things happening back to back. So so we have this one-night exhibition. Another impossible thing, like all the art faculty comes. Like, how did we even get them to show up for a beginner painting class exhibition? The head of the art department comes. It was just weird, you know, and then we all invited people of our own. There was like a ton of people at this one-night exhibition. It was so bizarre. And I brought my paintings that I'd been painting at home, my abstract paintings, to show during the exhibition, because it's like, these are cool, you know, it's like, and people are like, oh, this teacher is looking for you. This daughter of this famous sculptor is a teacher there, is looking for you. The head of the art department is looking for you. They want to know who this artist is. They're all like trying to find out, who is this, you know, who is this person? And I'm like, they're just being nice, right? Like it just didn't occur to me that they're like, something about my paintings, what, you know, as a beginner painter, it literally took me 3 years to actually believe when people would like, you know, look at my paintings and start crying and have these emotional responses. And I'm like, they're just being nice. Or, you know, when they'd go like gaga over my paintings, I'm like, it didn't make logical sense to me. I'm like, I'm a beginner painter. Like, so anyway, all that to say, that's how it all started. So I started painting, and then I got the message from the universe, now you're going to be a professional artist. And I'm like, what? And that's like, that was my reaction. What? Like,
Right.
like that doesn't sound like something that would be very interesting to me. Like, it just, like, that's not going to be challenging enough, like, just to be an artist. So anyway, it just seemed like, you know, painting all the time, I like it, you know, when I'm doing it, but of course, that's not all that is involved with becoming a professional artist, as I found out. But anyway, so I only painted as a professional artist 2 or 3 days a week. And then the rest was, you know, like, you know, website work and things like that, or just not working, or just whatever. But and anyway, it started, you know, I ended up getting a studio shortly after that in March of 2007, found a place that was much more suitable for where I could literally throw paint around, where I didn't have to cover everything in plastic. And, you know, in the sea of a gazillion websites, I put up a website, you know, after I got my studio, and within 2 months, a curator in Italy found my website and invited me to participate in this international exhibition in Ferrara, Italy in November of that year. So I went and did that. But in the meantime, I was doing all these shows, you know, because I was in this big warehouse facility that had a lot of artists, because that was what I was guided to, where I was guided to get my space. Because I looked at a bunch of places that were, you know, share a house or share a studio with 2 or 3 other people. And I'm like, no, I need to be in this big warehouse. So we had like built-in, like, you know, open studio things where people would come in. So I didn't have to, you know, try to ever show my work anywhere. I never had to do any of that stuff. So all that to say, this is where, to answer your question, finally, see how I get off on tangents, but so people would start coming in during these open studio events, and I'd be showing my paintings, and, you know, and people would have these very strong responses to the colors in the paintings and the compositions, but they would be specifically drawn to, like, oh my God, I can't stop staring at your red paintings. Oh my God, I can't stop staring at your blue or your indigo or whatever, because I worked in different series depending on what colors I was feeling drawn to. at any given time, I would paint with that color. And my paintings all have like tons of different layers on them, many different layers. So different colors, but the front layer is kind of predominantly one that, and then you see all these colors through it. But anyway, so that's where I started telling people, you know, it's like, oh, if you're really drawn to that color, you may have this going on in your body and this going on in your life. And they'd be like, oh my God, that's exactly what's going on in my body and my life. How do you know that? And because of all the stuff that I'd studied in Italy, and then the Eastern medicine, the Zen Shiatsu, and all the color correspondences with the chakras and the Eastern medicine, you know, especially in Japanese, the color correspondence to the different meridians. So there's different frequencies that our organ systems resonate at that correspond to these different colors. So I could tell, I started learning, it's like I can just diagnose people based on the colors that they're drawn to. It's like, what colors are you craving? And they could tell me, and I'm like, oh, okay, that starts to help me pinpoint even before I've like done an energy reading on their hara. And it's like, you get all this information from things that people are craving. We're conditioned to not really pay that much attention to that sort of stuff. But anyway, so people would be like, oh my God, like, I want to know more. Where's the book? And I'm like, there's no book. It's like, I don't know, hundreds of books in my head, and me connecting the dots between all these things and putting the system together. I'm like, and they're like, well, write a book. And I'm like, oh my God, do you know how much work that would be? And so people were like, this is one of those things that I said, oh my God, do you know how much work that would be? So people like kept pestering me to, every time I'd have one of these conversations, I want to be able to read what you just told me. I want to be able to go back and I want to learn about the other colors. I want to learn more, and I want to know how this can help me. And I'm like, and they're like, can you at least put some of it on your website? And I'm like, oh, that's a huge amount of work too, because you have, you know this, Shannon, it's like you've got all this information, knowledge in your head, and you can go ding, 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 and access what you need to give to an individual. But to take all of it and bring it into a cohesive format that is universally helpful to everybody, instead of me just accessing, you know, millions of data points and then giving you what you need. You don't need like all this stuff. You just need this stuff, you know. But anyway, so that's finally, again, it took me a long time, 3 years of people pestering me. Finally, and it's a longer story, but we'll go into the story of how I finally ended up doing that. But I ended up, for this one night exhibition, put all that, like, did a paintings and then the color correspondence. So I did a panel for each color: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, white, and magenta, and did a color field painting. I mean, I had, you know, I had all the color field paintings. So I just set up the exhibition in a way that you could see the painting, have the experience of the color, and then read what that color does for you, what it can do for you. And then, and that was like a huge hit. That was a one-night exhibition. Then I just copy and pasted and I stuck it on my website, and I said, okay, everybody stop bothering me now, because I put it on my website now, like, there you go.
I love it. One and done.
Yeah. And then now it's on my website. Now it's on the internet. So now I start getting contacted from people to like lecture and, you know, do interviews and stuff. And I started getting invited to major medical universities to present my, you know, research about color and light, and do an art, like it started at UT Health Sciences Center in San Antonio. They invited me to do, it was a medical research, again, universe. I never, ever, ever had to ever knock on anybody's door, say, hey, can I hang my paintings? I never had to do that. I always had so many invitations to show my work that I had to learn how to be selective and only do what resonated with me. And also when I started, this is also important, because when I decided, okay, I'll do this professional artist thing, but I'm not doing this starving artist. I'm not accepting that paradigm. I'm not doing that. I'm going to be a very well paid, highly paid, successful artist. So if I'm going to do this professional artist thing, I'm not doing the typical starving artist, you know, thing. So I just set that intention. And then every opportunity that came to me to show my work, I chose the things that were in alignment with taking me there, instead of like, I never accepted it. People would like offer me these things for these, Christmas booth or, these art market things. And, it's like a $500 booth. We'll give it to you for free because we want you to show your, and I'm like, thanks, but no thanks. Cause that wasn't in alignment with where I wanted to go. But anyway, it's important to have that kind of clarity where you want to be long-term, because you do need to make decisions along the way that are either in alignment with where you want to go or not in alignment. So again, it's a gut check, but there's also the, like, okay, this seems like a good opportunity. I could probably sell a ton of work there, but it's like, yeah, but it's not in alignment with work, because once you're an art market, like you're doing stuff there, it's really hard for people to see you a different way, because, oh, you sell your art in markets, right? Nothing wrong with that. Nothing at all wrong with that. Some people did. And it's like, that's not going to be enough for me. That's not going to be, I don't want to do this it's a huge amount of work to create paintings. It's a huge amount of work.
Right.
Well, some people can just knock them off, and then sell prints and stuff like that.
And when you're direct with your
Mhm,
experience, again,
mhm,
this is a holographic reality. So when we
mhm.
are direct with our
Yeah,
values and the frequencies that we do want to attain with whatever we consider abundance, right? We're always
mhm,
programming these
right.
different feelings. But again, the more direct you are, the universe just provides and provides and
Mhm,
provides.
yeah.
It leaves that space in creation where it's not just you're supported by, creator or, whatever you want to call it. It's essentially your source, and it's going to come in
Mhm,
when you are that direct and
right.
definitely open up all those pieces, and which I love because you do it so nicely. It's just,
Well,
it's so precise, and it happens so fast because you've gotten so much accomplished,
yeah.
just at this point in your lifetime. It's like, okay, what am I on to next?
Well, exactly. But that's again the limiting thing, where people think that things take a long time. Oh, this is going to take me forever, to get accomplished or established or whatever. I'd have artists all the time, like, what did you do? How did you do this? How did you, like, what? And I'm like, first of all, learn to get into flow state so you can create things that people resonate with. That's the most important thing. And then, it's like opportunity is going to fall in your lap as long as you're in flow and you're putting that, it's literally just about, okay, you have to, of course, you have to have a good product. You can't just, you could, but believe me, there have been lots of successful artists with really crappy products. It's just like a lot of marketing, but really it's so much easier if you have a good product. So if you have something, that people resonate with, then it's a matter of just, okay, I have something that people want. Now I just have to attract the people that want it. And it's so easy to do. You attract opportunities, you attract by believing that they're out there, and knowing that you've got something, you're getting feedback, people are resonating with it, which is important, that, and then knowing that there are a lot more people out there that are going to resonate with it. And you just put that out. It's like, okay, I've got this thing, and then people come, they find you, like that curator. And I asked her, I'm like, how on earth did you find my website in the sea of literally millions of artist websites? And again, like, anyway, she was like looking on the internet, and she just kind of went down a rabbit hole and then ended up on my website and saw these 3 paintings that were from that very first exhibition that at the Austin Community College, at the Austin Museum of Art event. Those were the 3 that ended up going to Italy. I had 4 paintings there, and those were the 3 that ended up going to Italy with me. And it was called The Spirit in Art. So all the paintings that she was picking for that exhibition, it wasn't just paintings, it was paintings and sculpture and stuff. And I think there were probably maybe 50 artists altogether. There was a whole book, with our anyway, they do these things big scale. But anyway, that is just like, you're not consciously saying, this is, oh, I'm going to manifest a curator in Italy. I wasn't doing that. I was just like, you know, build it and they will come kind of thing. But also knowing that people were resonating with this stuff. And then it's just like, okay. And I'd set that intention from the beginning. I'm going to be a highly paid, successful artist. I'm not, you know, I rejected the whole starving artist paradigm. So that's basically where it started. And then you keep that in mind. It's not like, or even like having to focus on it constantly. It's just like, that's my belief. And that's what I'm then projecting out into the universe. And that, you know, thought is energy. So whatever you're thinking, that's what gets blasted out there. But anyway, all that to say, I exhibiting the paintings, doing all these open studio things, doing a lot of invited art exhibitions. And then I got contacted because after I put the pages on my website, a medical research coordinator at University, UT Health Sciences Center, San Antonio, is a very long name, it's medical school in San Antonio, emailed me because he was following my artwork. His wife had died from cancer and he found my paintings to be very calming and soothing for him. He was under, you know, a lot of stress because his wife had recently passed away. So he was like, as soon as I put the page on my website, and you know, would go visit my website often to look at the paintings, and then he sees this new page pop up that's color healing and art, and he clicks on that and he's like reading. It's like, oh my God, this is all this information about the colors. He emails me through Facebook and says, hey, I've been following your paintings for a few years now, and it's like, you have this thing, and it's like, I know here at the university, they do art exhibitions with a learning component, and your stuff would fit right in because you've got the art and you've got the educational part. Do you want me to put you in touch with the curator? And I said, okay, sure. You know, it's like, as long as I don't have to do anything, I don't reach out and do cold calling. It's like, if you do the connecting and stuff like that, then I'll, you know, have a conversation with her. So she reached out to me, and then she came, and this was like right around this time of the year again. It's like Christmas is coming up, so I'll drive up to, I had a place in Central Austin where I had a building up back that I turned into my art gallery. So she's like, I'll come up to your gallery in January, and then we'll take a look, because she wanted to see the paintings in real life. So she's like, oh my God, yeah, seeing them in real life is very much stronger impact than seeing them on the screen. So she had come up with her husband and partner, and her partner, as they're leaving, they're like literally walking out the door of my gallery, and he says, you know, she has to give a talk. And Penny was her name, the curator. She's like, well, we don't do talks with the, you know, the art exhibition, you know, stuff. And he said, for this stuff, she has to give a talk. And I'm like, never given a talk. And I'm like, and Penny's like, do you want to give a talk? And my instinct was like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to learn PowerPoint. And I'm like, that was my first thought. But at the same time, and my body was like, yes, you have to do this. Well, it was my intuition that said yes. It's like, you're saying yes. But everything was like, oh my God, this is gonna be a lot of work. So again, but I knew I have to do this. It's like, I can't say no, just because it's going to be uncomfortable for me, and I'm going to have to learn a bunch of stuff, and, you know, that I don't, you know, and put things together. That's another thing that's really hard for me, to put things together and cohesive, and, you know, like pare information down. That's one of the hardest things for me. So anyway, I did it. Amazing, got tons of publicity for it. Like Penny did all this like publicity for like the exhibition, gave the talk, had a bunch of people from the, you know, community that came. So it was medical doctors, medical students, and then she got it published in other places too. So it was open to people in the community. So, and it was from that. So again, this is how these things springboard into other things. So some of the people that came were worked for the Cancer Research Center at UT Health Sciences Center in San Antonio. They were like fascinated by the topic, the content, and they contacted me right after that. They said, we were at your talk, we would like you to do some kind of workshop to teach this stuff to our cancer caregivers. And I'm like, but again, but again, it's like, okay, I have to do this. That was the beginning of the Creative Flow training program. So I taught them how to get into flow state using color. Basically, I reverse engineered my own flow process, taught them how to do it with color, and then how to analyze and assess what you've got going on in your own life by interpreting the color and the drawing that you create. So that's how the Creative Flow training program came about. And I would never have taught it again had enough people not pestered me to do it again after they heard that I did it for this one-off thing. But anyway, so now we can talk about the individual colors if you want, because that's kind of like, so that UT Sciences Center turned into, you know, then I got invited to UT Southwestern Medical Center in Dallas, much bigger space, much bigger, 10,000 people at that university. Wow. Did a much bigger exhibition of both the paintings and the learning component. It was able to expand it down this whole long hallway, gave another lecture there, and then was invited to speak at the Mensa conference. It's just like, again, I didn't seek out any of this stuff. So the Mensa conference contacted me, then South by Southwest Interactive, that's a big conference here in Austin, and then more medical conferences. So people were just finding me. And I never did any kind of publicity. I never went out and sought any of this stuff. But again, you know, it's just, and by the way, none of my lectures about color and light, even though early on they were accompanied by my physical paintings, never ever sold any paintings through that. It wasn't my intention to do them to sell paintings. I knew that they were completely different demographics, high-end art collectors versus, you know, people that are interested in this stuff. There wasn't any crossover there, but every time I would give a lecture, I'd get this email out of the blue or a phone call, or somebody would contact me, you know, from New York or Montana or whatever, like wherever they were. And they're like, I found your website. I want to come and see your paintings. Or like sometimes they would buy them sight unseen, but which was like, how can you buy a painting from a photo? Like I had it like in DC, I had a guy that bought, I can't remember, like 3 of my big paintings. They were expensive. And you're like, you don't even want to see them first. It's like, no, I can feel it. So, anyway, so other times people would fly in. But all that to say, every time I would give a lecture, I would get these manifestations of these people that would show up that would want to buy my paintings. So it's kind of like the universe said, good job on the talk, here's some money for you. So, you know, because like
it's incredible of the frequencies you're working with. You know, whatever you're tapped into in the quantum field, it's working. It's working nicely.
But the thing that the one thing that I always consistently teach people, because again, I learned this from my grandmother. I didn't learn it from my immediate family by any means, is pay it forward. Always go out of your way to help other people. It doesn't matter. Beautiful. Like, don't think in terms of like, okay, I'm going to help this person. What are they going to do for me in the future?
Right.
I've been doing that my entire life. That's another constant where it's like, I learned something, I want to share it. I learned, you know, I discover some cool new thing. I want to tell people about it. It's like, not because I'm, you know, like affiliate programs didn't even exist back then, but certainly it's like, not because somebody's paying me to tell you about this product, but it's like, this is a really cool product, you got to get it. So, and I've never been an affiliate, and I don't have any affiliate program, and I never will. I'm very, you know, people learned that early on in the first year of my product launch, because I'm like, no, guess what? You get to buy it, and you can tell people about it if you really like it. And yeah, you get to pay full price, even if you're telling people about it. It's like, because I was getting all these people that were contacting me because they were hearing all this, you know, these amazing things about the Rejuvenator. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to, I want people to experience it and then tell people about it if they want to tell people about it, because they care about helping other people. So paying it forward, go out of your way to help others whenever you can. Even if there's not any immediate payback for you, it's just like it.
Right. It comes back 100-fold. Yeah. It always does.
It always does. And the thing is, like, it feels amazing. It feels amazing to help people. It just does. It's like a high in itself. And, you know, and you do, but you have to have boundaries, of course. Mm-hmm. It's not about help people at your own, and that's, you've probably learned this the hard way too. You know, many people that are in the healing arts or in the creative arts, we end up wanting to help and give stuff away, and, you know, and to the point that it ends up depleting ourselves. So you have to learn that, to have boundaries. It's like, okay, I can give and give, but then this is where I stop. This is my hard stop. This is my limit. And then, you know, and then next week I'll give some more. And, you know, like whatever however you define what your boundaries are. What, have you had that kind of experience in what you've done in the filmmaking realm, or?
Yeah, in all my realms, from medical to filmmaking to, you know, even more so with healing. I do a lot of energetic clearings and hypnosis. And I was telling you, you know, my sessions can last from an hour to 3 hours because I do attunings and a lot of energetic trainings to the cellular template. But it's something you have to be conscious of, because you're in that field and it's so expansive, right? It's like when you're creating in flow state, it's almost like you can kind of blow your circuit sometimes of how high you get in that resonance. And so with healing, it always feels good, but it is one of those things that, again, you have to stay in balance, because it's not something I can do daily. You know, I can work with a person each day, but I also know that when you heal someone, they have such an experience, you know, to feel their home resonance for the first time, that they want more, right?
Yeah.
And so it is, I understand your feeling too, when all these people, you know, they're finally coming in on all this frequency and they're asking for more and more. And I'll do the same thing where I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that. It's too time consuming. But when you do open up to it and give it, it expands. But yeah, I have to be really conscious of how much energy I'm giving and receiving at the same time. Daily,
It has
daily.
to, yeah, it has to be in balance. So you have to, you know, because you channel it through, but it's like, if you're depleting your resources, like I'm an introvert, I'm not an extrovert. So doing talks and then answering a gazillion questions, I get into that speaker flow. I can talk for hours and hours and hours. And then after that, I kind of want to like, just not be around anybody for a while. I just want to, I don't feel tired at all. I just feel like that was a lot of people. So I, you know, you have to be aware of your own, you know, it's not so much limitations. It's like, what charges my batteries? You know, what do I really like doing? And how often do I like doing it? Which is why I never painted more than 2, 3 at the most when I had this big commission. That I was painting 3 times a day, but I would usually paint twice a day, because it's like, it's a huge download. And I would work for hours. I would have my studio days and I'd be like, I'm going to go into the studio, usually like early to mid-afternoon, because I'm not a morning person for that sort of thing. And then I'm like, no schedule for the evening. I don't have anything. I'm not making plans for dinner. I'm not doing anything, because sometimes I would stay until like 10 o'clock at night. And because, you know, it's just like, go, go, go. And you're having, you know, getting in flow and making stuff, and, you know, and time goes by and you're completely unaware of it. But I had no desire to do that more than twice a week. That was plenty for me. That was a good amount of time to be able to have that. And then getting into that level of flow twice a week for me then started just flowing over into all other aspects of my life. And that's where you have to have the time where it's quiet enough for you to be broadcasting, and then for those other opportunities to come in. Otherwise, you're just like noisy, and you can't even hear the stuff. Like, not opportunity. And I'm like, oh, I'm so focused on working. You know, like, you don't even notice when these things are coming to you. So it's really important to have that balance. So whether it's the healing work, like in your case, you know, having enough. How many days a week do you work doing the healing work?
You know, I'm actually usually working every day on, you know, different aspects of it. So
but
I'll usually,
when I'm talking about like you're actually working with clients.
Probably 3 times a week, 3 or 4.
Yeah. And I found when I was doing shiatsu and acupuncture, I was working every work day, but I didn't want to see more than 3 or 4 patients a day. That for me was my limit. Like that's how much I can give, you know? So that, and I knew that, but even so, I was still working too much. And I, studying and working. That's why when I came back to Austin, it's like, I just need to get into flow. So that was where the painting, came from. I didn't have a piano at the time, so I couldn't just, sit down and play piano on a etheric piano. So anyway, that was how that all started. But of course, it was meant to happen that way. But you have to know your limitations as far as what charges your batteries. I think it's more appropriate to think in those terms. Like, does this charge me up? Yes. If I do it twice a week, it's energizing. If I do it more than twice a week, then it starts to get depleting.
This has just been such a great conversation. It's, I feel like I'm getting attuned to a whole new frequency of creation and manifestation just by listening to you. It's, your energy and your knowing and how direct you are with, your artistic endeavors that you were moving towards. It's amazing to hear how it just opened up, because you left that space for it consistently. And I'd like to move into the area of your flow state and how you actually are able to access such a strong field.
Okay, well, the flow, getting into flow for me throughout my life has been a process of where I'm typically doing something creative. Like when I would write in elementary school and university, I would get into this very high level flow. When I was studying advanced mathematics, I would get into this very, very strong, very high frequency flow, especially with advanced level mathematics studying in engineering school. I should have been a mathematician. When playing the piano also as a child and studying training as a classical pianist, getting into flow through that. So it was always doing something creative. That was the catalyst for that allows you to get completely into that right brain state where I'm not analyzing or judging or anything like that. When I started painting, I knew that I wanted to paint abstracts, which means that you don't have, when painters are painting, a mug or a bowl of fruit or things like that, you have that as your subject, basically, that people can focus on and go, oh, that looks like a nice bowl of fruit kind of thing. Abstract paintings don't have a thing to look at. So it's all about color and composition, all color composition. So, and there is composition in abstracts. A lot of people aren't aware of it, but it's like, it's something that comes about organically. And then you can figure out, it's like exactly what it is that's resonating with people. But anyway, the color is also extremely important. So because of the fact that I wanted to really work with color in I love Rothko's paintings, who does the very large color field, but his are the truly color field, but lots of layers of paint, but his were more opaque and you'd see things, but it was just kind of this such a strong resonance that you can feel just looking at a wall of color. So that was kind of, I didn't come about doing that logically. I can tell you the very, very first time that I realized what was a really easy process for me to get into flow. I was painting at home because this was during that class, I couldn't get into flow and consistently maintain that because of the interruptions in the class from the teacher coming around. So I was painting at home in my painting room that I had, and I just had this thought that popped in my head. Again, these downloads. It's like, what would it be like, if I just paint with the color that I'm really drawn to? And I'm like, because I was like, I started putting paint phthalo blue and alizarin crimson on my palette, and I was mixing them, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't stop staring. Like I just couldn't get enough of that color. And then it was like I could make, more indigo or more violet, and it was just like it was like eye candy. I was like starving for this color. There was something about that color that was really resonating with me. And because of all the stuff that I've studied, I know that, color does have these very strong energetic responses in our body. So I'm like, I'm not trying to analyze this right now. I'm just like, I just want more of this color. So I actually had a canvas that I'd already painted some layers on, and in class that it was just like, oh my God, this is awful, because I couldn't get into flow. I'd start getting into flow, but it was like, it had the beginning. So I'm like, I'm going to paint over that and then see what happens. So I started painting these colors over top of that. And oh my God, and because, you know, it was the complements of the colors underneath. And I got into flow, and I got this message. I started painting, just going methodically back and forth. I do that a lot, like smooth strokes back and forth with these colors that I'm just can't get enough of. And I'm getting hypnotized almost by these colors that I'm working with, and this methodical, you know, back and forth on the, and this was an 18 by 24, so not very big painting. That first one, and I'm back at the first one. When I say the first one, I mean the first one where I really got truly into flow, and that became my kind of like my style, my own style came through. Although I never really considered it, because I was always just channeling with this stuff. So I'm painting, and I do the top part, and I'm like, let me put the other color down here, and then it's like, and then I'll make a gradation, and then I just get this message: get the white tube of paint and squeeze a blob across there and spread it. So I did. I spread it, and then I sprayed it with solvent. And then I started, it's like, now put it on the floor, start moving it around. So I did. And it was just like this, like I just was completely guided. It wasn't logical left brain. And that came about, all that portal opening like that came about because I was using the colors that I was really craving at that particular moment in time. So I created that, and I was like, kind of cool. And then it dried, and it still looked super cool. I ended up selling that painting for quite a bit of money to a very high-end art collector. It is in his studio, in his home. He collects original artworks. So he has an original Picasso and a Miro, and it's hanging in the same room as a original Picasso and original Miro.
Incredible.
Yeah. So, and he's like, this is amazing. He said, I only collect artists that I think their work is going to be around like in 100 years or, you know, longer. But anyway, so that was kind of like where I just started really getting my toes wet. And I'm like, okay, this seems to work, you know, paint with the colors that I'm really craving, instead of like picking a tube and going, here, let me see what colors I can make out of these two tubes. So then I did another, I did a diptych, and I had never gone bigger than 18 inches by 24, which even at that size was a little bit intimidating for me. But I had 2 blank canvases that were 30 inches by 30 inches, which seemed huge to me at the time. And you know, canvases are expensive too. So you're kind of like, oh God, if I mess this up, I just wasted, you know, like $50, or, you know, like how that's, I mean, they're expensive. They're not cheap you can get crappy canvases. I didn't want to get crappy canvases. But anyway, so I'm like, and I'm still craving those colors, whatever was going on in my life at the time. And the colors were indigo and violet. So up in those higher frequency realms. So, you know, 6th, 7th chakra. So the next session I'm like, I'm still wanting more of those colors. So I do another, you know, mix up, and I'm like, I can't get enough of these colors. So I start painting. And again, that methodical thing, I get the same message, get the tube of paint. So this time I do, you know, put the blob, and then I'm spraying it, and then have it on the ground. It's making all these cool things by itself, but then also the agitation, the moving. And then I did that one. I did a second one, and I called those synchronicity A and B. The first one I named opening. And then the other ones were synchronicity A and B. And it was those 3 paintings that the international curator in Ferrara invited me to bring those for the exhibition called The Spirit in Art. So the color is important. So I tell people, you know, it's like, it's actually easy to bring color into your life, to have it, you know, as a stimulation for you, and not just, you know, because people will pick these colors that it's like, oh, my decor is this color, you know. those aren't, you might be wanting those colors right now, you know, but 3 months from now, you might not be craving those colors anymore. You might have a whole different need. It's kind of like, you know, when you're coming down with a cold and you see the big orange on the, you know, kitchen table and you're like, oh my God, I want to eat like 10 of those because it's got all the vitamin C, and your body knows that lots of vitamin C, it's going to help you overcome the cold faster. So anyway, you crave the colors that will help to bring you into balance more quickly. You are repelled by the colors that you have too much of that frequency. If there's too much already in your system, and I'll give you an example. Then that would be like, you would not be drawn to that color at all. It would actually be like, that's too much. So I usually explain using the colors of red and blue, since those are easy for people to kind of like imagine and feel. So red, there, you know, in the visible light spectrum coming from sunlight, there are the 7 spectral colors. I mean, there's hundreds within there, but the division is red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. So the longer wavelengths are red, orange, yellow, you know, and the longest wavelength is red, and then it gets shorter and shorter wavelength, meaning like this, that's what the frequency actually looks like. It's actually like a wave. So long wavelength means that they're long and flowing like that. Short wavelength means they go like up and down like this. So longer wavelength means longer wavelengths can penetrate further, like AM radio waves that are longer than FM radio waves, which are like this, that can hold more data. I'm probably getting too technical with this. Okay.
No. This is
okay.
Great. This all makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Because sometimes I like get that engineering thing. I'm like, so FM signal, which is why you get a stronger, you know, better quality sound with FM signal. It's like a shorter wavelength, higher frequency, because in that 1 second of space, you're going to get more of those waves together than the longer wavelength, lower frequency. But the red energy, red color is stimulating, energizing. So red, orange, and yellow are the stimulating colors in the spectrum. So red is the most stimulating, most energizing. Orange, which is a combination of yellow and red, is less stimulating than red, more stimulating than yellow. Yellow is still a stimulating color, but less than orange and even more less than red. Then you've got green in the middle, which is neutral. And then you've got blue, indigo, violet. Those are sedating, more increasingly sedating, calming, you know, bring your energy down. Blue calming, indigo more calming, violet even more. So as far as frequencies go, for like how they make you feel. So if you are feeling stressed out, looking at a red wall in your home would make you feel loopy, because you've already got, you've got too much energy. You're already vibrating, you know, resonating at too high of a frequency, because stress is like high frequency. It's like zzz. So red would be like having that extra cup of coffee when you're caffeine sensitive. You know, you might be able to handle 1 cup, but then it's like, if I have 2 cups, I'm like bouncing off the wall. So if you're already stressed out, looking at the color red would make you even more like, I don't even want to look at that, because it's the straw that broke the camel's back kind of thing. However, if you are, and this is not true in the light spectrum, this is true when you're looking at, like, you know, a color on your wall, because the rejuvenator, somebody can be extremely stressed out and it's very calming for them. It's not, so it's not the same kind of effect you get with the rejuvenator in particular, because it's more than just a light therapy device. But anyway, so blue, if you look at now let's say you're stressed out and you look at the blue ocean, or you look at a blue ball, that's going to be more calming and sedating. So you'll tend to be like, oh, I need some blue, I need some calming, soothing colors. So if you, and people are often, typically always a certain constitutional type, if you want to call it that, where you thrive in certain color environments as a general rule. And that can change depending on, throughout your life, it can change. So for me, I tend to be, you know, a very energetic person. I have a lot of energy, but I also like the color red because it's kind of like my battery recharge. So I like having red in my environment as a battery recharge color because I thrive in being in that high energy, go, go, go state. I thrive thinking all the time and, you know, like analyzing and, you know, processing a lot of information, but then also toggling into intuitive, you know, complete energy sensitive kind of stuff. So red for me is a really good battery recharge color because I am a, you know, they say alpha or driven people or whatever, people that have a lot of go, go, go energy, you know, that type of energy. Some people work in that type of environment, like they might be realtors or I'm trying to think of some other things that are just like you have to be going constantly, but they don't thrive in that. They're doing it. They made a choice to do that type of work because they wanted to make a lot of money. They don't thrive in that environment. I'm just using that as an example because that's what popped into my head. But so they may like making a lot of money, but then they get exhausted and depleted because that's not really their natural constitution. They really like to stay at home and chill and kind of, you know, like be more of a homebody, but they chose that because they made a decision based on money. And again, I'm not, you know, this is just one example that, you know, many, that people end up doing things that are not necessarily in alignment with who they are. Like for me, being a realtor, I would never be, yeah, very high energy, but that kind of repetitive type of work and the fact that you have to be around people all the time and be like, that would be the worst kind of thing for me because it's like, I like being in my space and being high energy and doing stuff, but not exchanging with a lot of people. So because of that, when I'm in balance, red is a very good color for me because it's a battery recharge color. And I'm pretty much in balance all the time now, but I had many years where I was not in balance at all. So for somebody that likes to have things go kind of more at an even pace and, you know, keel, like, you know, even keel, they'll tend to want to have more blues, indigos, violets, even greens in their environment. Green is often used in spas because it is a neutral energy color. So if you're feeling depleted or, you know, tired, it will bring your energy up. If you're feeling strung out, you know, like too much energy, it'll bring your energy down. So it's a good balancing color, you know, which is like going out in nature. That's one of the best things to bring your energies in either direction, up or down, depending on what you need. So blue would be more appealing to somebody that likes to have that kind of even keel. And I mean, there's different things that people will want colors in their home different from what they want to wear on their body. So the colors that you choose to wear on your body will not necessarily be the same as the colors that you want to have in your home. Sometimes they do, but other times, like for me, because I'm an introvert, like me wearing red, I will occasionally wear red, but I have to be really in the right mood to wear red because it's an attention getting color. So, and I don't like a lot of attention. So I'd be like, I'm black, you know, like invisible, like, so, but red, I love having some red in my home, like, you know, not a huge whole wall of it, but like all my accent stuff, I'll always go for red. So that, because it's battery recharge color, but again, I don't want to be going out and wearing red on my body. I will occasionally, but for the most part, won't. Do you have a favorite color, Shannon?
Oh my gosh, I love all colors. If you look at my place, you have everything going on. I just am called to everything at once. A favorite color, you know, I guess right now what I'm attracted to more so is I love aqua blues. I love white right now and really dark grays. But I'm surrounded by constant color all the time.
So the aqua blue, because the white is, you know, in the light spectrum, it's a combination of all colors, or the you know, no color in the there's the additive color field and then subtractive. So when you put colors together as light, they actually change. It's not like, you know, mixing paint is different. So if I mix red and yellow paint, it will become orange paint. It's not the same thing when you mix light together, but light light is what creates color, because when you shine light onto a surface, the color that comes back to your eye is the reflected color that is not absorbed by that object. So the object absorbs all the colors and bounces back that one color into your eye. That's simplifying it. But so you said right now you're creating it. Is that like that mug behind you kind of thing? Or whatever? Oh, that's a plant. It's a big mug with a plant in it.
Yeah, it's a little planter. And then I have some two little lovebirds are the blue crystal.
Okay. So, but is that the aqua blue that you're talking about, or is it more of an even like a lighter?
It's even a little more with a green hue to it.
Like, oh, the green, yeah, the
yeah.
green. And did you start craving that recently, or is that something that you've been
I just
craving
love it, you know, ever since I was a little girl. That aqua, yeah.
So that's kind of like your constitutional, your like recharge color kind of thing, or one of them. But I'm just using that as an example because you're not like saying red. Do you find that you're like, you like to have things more on an even keel, like you don't like to be doing too many things, or that may not resonate because you seem like
as far as activities?
Yeah.
Well, like you, I'm an introvert, but I love projects, but I have to be really balanced with my projects at the same time. So they have to have a lot of space in between.
Okay. So it does sound like you like to not have too much happening all at one time.
Exactly.
You like have, okay. So it pace things out. So where there's like division between one project to the next. And I'm kind of like, I like to overlap things. I like to have multiple things going at one time. So I can do this one for a while and then I get bored with that one. So then I move to this one. And my completion of projects is kind of almost in a spiral. So it starts out here and I'll work on a little bit of this and then I'll work on this one and then I'll work on this one and then this one and this one. And then I get to this one again. And now I'm closer to completion. It's inside the spiral, closer to where it's done. And then I work on this for a while and then the next layer of each of these until I get, and they're all finished. So I like that layering kind of thing where I've got a lot of different things going, but I don't want to be doing them all at the same time. Does that make sense? And yours is more like you want to do one thing and then spread it out and then do another thing. Is that accurate?
I would say so.
Okay, so that, which sounds more like pacing things out. It's just, if you think in terms of energy, like having things move along at an even pace kind of thing. That's how I associate difference between like the cooler, calming colors. People that want to go, I want things to go kind of like this. I want them to be, you know, smooth flowing and kind of be nice and even, not like this. Right? And I'm kind of more like this, but I thrive in that, but not around people. I don't want to be like that around people because I'm an introvert, but the way that I manage all these things, I like to have that where it's like high energy. Now I'm going to do this. Now I'm going to do this home projects. Now I'm going to do this, and, you know, so, anyway, that's kind of like constitutional type since you've liked that color for a very long time.
Yeah, no, it connects a lot of dots.
Yeah. And sometimes people will change. Sometimes people will be, you know, like high energy and they like to do that. And then they'll get, you know, later in life, they might be like, now I want things to kind of go, I want my projects to go like this and have spacing in between. So it's possible. I mean, or you can go the other way. You can be like, now I'm feeling like, you know, I've got all this energy and I want things to be like, you know, like it's an energy thing and a frequency thing. So none is better than the other. It's just what you thrive as an individual doing. And then, but if people realize that it's okay to change, you can change. That's where people will be like, oh my God, I love this color. I want to decorate my whole house in this, you know, different shades of this color. And then 6 months later, they're like, I hate my house. I hate my house. It's like, why did I do that? Because they don't realize that your color cravings will change. So I tell people, it's like, if you want to be able to mix things up whenever you want. So having a lot of different color just means that you're balanced in the spectrum, you know, like I'm craving all these different colors. You can have kind of a blank slate, you know, like your and the grays, you know, like that's a perfect, you know, you can layer color onto that because gray is, you know, white with black, you know, a little bit of black, but it's not, there's not color in there, because white is either the, you know, avoidance of all color, or depending again on whether it's the additive or subtractive spectrum. So, but gray, then you can have a gray neutral palette, or white, or eggshell white, or whatever you want to put your walls or your furnishings, and having these neutral colors, and then change the whole feel of your living room. Let's talk about, you know, just by changing the blanket that you put over the back of the sofa, put pillows on the furnishings, change the carpet, you know, if it's an area rug, put a different area rug down, it looks like a completely different room. And those things are really cheap to change. Right. And, you know, and then you can like, okay, now I do that every fall and winter, and fall, winter, and then spring, summer. I'll change my color palette in my different rooms, including in my bedroom. In the summer, I want cooler colors in the bedroom, but in the winter, I switch to warmer colors. So I don't want like too stimulating red, but I'll have like, you know, earthier, warmer colors. So it's not like cool aqua blue in the summer, you know, where it's an actual cooling color, like temperature wise.
Right.
Living room, same thing. I'll literally change the color of the blanket and the pillows, and then it changes the feel of the entire room just by doing that. So there are lots of easy ways to integrate color so that it stimulates. It also is healing if you're using the color, if you're surrounded by the colors that you're craving at the time, because again, your body's craving those frequencies. So you have it in your environment. Maybe you only need it for 3 months. Okay, swap out the pillows. You don't have to throw them away. Just put them in, you know, stick them in the closet for the next time you're craving those colors, and then, you know, swap them out with the other things. Same thing with sheets, even with sheets in your bed. I mean, changing the bedding. So these ways of completely changing your whole color palette in your home, you know, are so easy to do. And sometimes people are like, oh, I did the interior design and I made this, you know, you don't, I mean, yeah, maybe you want to paint your wall, but be aware that in 6 months, you might want to change the color of your wall if you're doing something dramatic.
Well, I love that you bring up these points too, because, you know, it really is taking charge of our life. It's, you know, just by these simple tasks, you can create such a beautiful frequency for your body on a daily basis, you know, and like you said, it's the self-healing that we can do alone with these little tasks in the color spectrum. It's, you know, more information needs to be pushed out there. It's, again, how simple is that? Just to change up a few things in the house where the color is so pleasing to the eye and the senses. It's your body, just, you can feel it. You can feel the vibration immediately shift.
Yeah, and that's where, you know, it's, people sometimes think that things are, oh, it's so complicated to do, you know, this thing or change my decor or whatever. It's like, yeah, and it would cost you a fortune if you have to change your sofa every time you change your color cravings because you bought a, you know, brilliant green sofa or neon yellow or whatever. It's like, and then you're like, I can't stand looking at that a few months later. It's like, yeah, it was perfect. It was exactly what I needed when I bought it. But so just having that kind of awareness that we have all this control on these daily levels. But, you know, we've been so conditioned to think that everything is about get out of balance and then take a pill to get back into balance. But the pill never gets you back into balance. The pill just makes you more out of balance. So you can do these very easy things on a daily basis, you know, and, you know, food as medicine, that's another big topic, but we're talking about color and light right now. So even with the lighting, that's another thing. So like, see these lights back here, these are warm yellow. Yeah. Anyway, just
moving through the colors. So we were really moving through the color spectrum, and I think we kind of left it off with the white, the grays, and then, you know, just you moving us through how we can make these small shifts in our home to entertain these beautiful frequencies that our bodies like so much.
Yeah, well, and that's where I started going off on the bulbs, because it's not just the colors that you put on your walls, it's also the light bulbs that you're choosing that have either warmer colors or cooler colors, or like super cool, which is like, you know, can be overstimulating for some people because it actually stimulates this it's called orexin hypocretin in the brain. It actually makes you alert, but then it makes you jittery if you're exposed to too much of it. So some bulbs, if you're exposed to them for too long, if they're in that frequency, and it doesn't matter if it's LED or fluorescent or incandescent, if they've got too much of that stimulating blue, then they'll make you jittery if you're under them for too long. So, but being aware of that, like you wouldn't, you want your living room to be nice and warm and cozy and inviting. So you're typically, having, if you want to stimulate a lot of conversation, red, orange, and yellow, especially red, not red, orange, will make people more extroverted and want to socialize and want to communicate with each other. And that, too much yellow, though, can make people get in the ego state where it's like they might get too attached to their ideas. They like to have the conversation, but then they can be like too. So it's a balance again. It's everything,
Right.
like you like yellow, but don't put too much yellow. Too much yellow will also make babies poop a lot.
No. Yeah, it's just amazing, these stimulations with the
Yeah.
frequencies. Yeah.
Yeah, because it stimulates, digestion and appetite. Yellow does.
It's fascinating.
So anyway, we were coming back to, so all of this, doing all the painting and stuff like that, and I'm teaching and I'm doing all of these lectures now. And then I had so many friends, medical doctor friends, that are like, Leanne, you're validating the science of light therapy. I mean, when I started teaching about it, nobody was paying any attention to light therapy at all. I mean, there were like a few little cosmetic devices like that were like extremely expensive and very like tiny little things that you could find out there on the internet, just for, getting rid of wrinkles and things like that. But there was nothing for medical applications other than, lasers, very expensive technology that cost tens of thousands of dollars, that you could go to your physiotherapist and get laser on your knee for, for arthritis or, whatever was going on. Lots of training, lots of ability to harm people also if you don't know how to use them right, because laser, we're not designed to take in laser light. We're designed to take in non-coherent light, which is what the sun gives off, which is what, we're around these light bulbs. That's all non-coherent. Lasers are coherent, meaning that they're all the same frequency and they're in sync with each other. So all those waves, actually, they're the same waves, but they're in sync. So they have this additive effect. They get very powerful. And which is why they can, burn tissue, cauterize tissue. They're used for surgery, like laser surgery, things like that. So lasers are light, but it's coherent light. So they can be extremely harmful if they're not used properly. So obviously lay people can't be doing any kind of light application in their home using lasers. I mean, it's cost prohibitive. And then, like without who knows how many hours or months of training, you could really harm yourself. So I started teaching people, it's like the sunlight, it was really motivated by my, all this, people interested in the colors, but I wanted to teach about the healing effects of color and light because of the fact that so many people, still, but way more so back then, it's like, I don't want to be in the sun because it's going to give me cancer. They'd been so conditioned by the media to think that sunlight was going to give them cancer. They're going to die from the sun. So it's kind of like somebody telling you, well, if you eat, you're going to die. So don't eat at all. If you drink water, you're going to die. Yeah, if you drank too much water, it could kill you. If you eat too much, it can kill you. If you eat junk food, it will kill you. But sunlight, too much sunlight is bad for you, but you need sunlight. It's a vital nutrient for our bodies, as important as breathing, as important as eating food, and as important as drinking water. So of course we're getting a lot more people are waking up these days to what the media, the best interest that they have for you, and the messages that they tell you that are, conditioned to, well, just take these pills. And, while I was in Italy, before I left for Italy, it was still illegal to advertise any kind of pharmaceutical drugs on television. When I came back, I'm like, what is up with all these pharmaceutical commercials? They made it legal while I was in Italy, but they were not allowed to do that for the longest time. But Anyway, so now you get, you know, and of course then those pharma commercials pay for those television stations and the magazines. And so everything that you're reading is filtered through who's paying for those media outlets, essentially. I mean, they're basically paying their bills and paying to keep the lights on, and then also paying a lot of kickbacks too, to control the messaging that is put out there that people then consume, and they think that the media is just reporting facts, and in fact they're reporting what they're being paid to report and spin things in a certain way. So yeah, the sun is actually not going to give you cancer if you use it the way that it's supposed to be used. And you know, and the worst kind of cancer that you're going to get from sun, like getting too much sun exposure, is skin cancer, which is easily detectable anyway, and before it ever turns into anything else. But the every type of cancer, even skin cancer, you have a much higher probability of getting any type of cancer by avoiding sunshine. So people that work indoors were more likely to get skin cancer even though they're never outside, because it's the avoidance of sunshine, which sounds like, you know, the opposite. But anyway, your probability of dying from anything, all-cause mortality, there's like a study that was done for 20 years, I believe in Sweden. All-cause mortality, the less sunshine you get, the more likely you are to die earlier than anything, you know, of anything. So it doesn't matter, heart disease, you know, any type of cancer, whatever thing kills you, your probability of dying from that is much higher to kill you at an earlier age than if you're avoiding sun. The more you avoid it, the more likely you are to die.
Well, with sun too, doesn't sun have every color frequency coming
Yes.
through it into our bodies?
Yeah.
And we're solar beings.
Right. Exactly. Well,
So,
that's how when I was teaching about, it's like, it's because it was the springboard, because the color in the paintings, and it's like, but you have to understand that the reason that we respond to these colors is because we evolved to live and thrive under sunlight that have all of the spectral colors within them. So red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. People don't think of that in terms of sunlight because they see white light, right? I mean,
right.
they see UVC white light. We don't realize that, you know, in the morning the light is red. Well, the reason that it's red, orange, yellow in the morning is because, again, those are the longer wavelengths. As the sun is coming, here's the horizon, right? Or here's the horizon over here. Let's say you're standing here. Here's the sun coming up, and then as it's coming up over the horizon, now it's got a lot more atmosphere to go through than when it gets up here. So right now, the only wavelengths that can penetrate all of that atmosphere are the longer ones, the red, orange, and yellow. Same thing with when the sun sets. So that's why the sunset is red, orange, yellow. When the sun gets up high enough, the shorter wavelengths, the blues and the indigos, greens, you know, that, but it comes through primarily as blue. You start to see the sky becomes blue. So then you see the blue sky. That's because those shorter frequencies of blue are now coming through. The sky that reflects on the water, you know, water isn't blue, water's clear. You know, you take a glass of water, it's not blue, it's clear. So again, all of that is coming from the sun. So every time you go out under sunshine, you're getting bathed in all those colors. The only time that people even, well, I think that, I mean now, but before people, it's like, when you see a rainbow, people will be like, oh my God, it's a rainbow. All those colors are always in sunshine. The only reason that you're seeing them split up into those spectral colors, the rainbow, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet, is because of the water droplets that are left in the atmosphere. And then if you've ever seen the Newton prism thing, you know, where a glass triangle pyramid, the sunlight comes through and then it splits up into the like Dark Side of the Moon Pink Floyd album, for anybody who knows that one. White light comes in and then all the spectral colors go through the glass and then they split and then they reflect and refract. And that's what they're doing with the water droplets. Every little water droplet is taking in those frequencies with all the light, and then they're splitting them. So you're seeing the rain, which is why you can do it if you're, you know, your garden hose in your backyard. You know, you spray, you spray your hose up against the sun, and then you see the rainbow in the water hose. It's the colors are always there. Every time you're going out in the middle of the day, for example, you're getting all of them. In the morning, you're getting more red, orange, and yellow. In the evening, you're getting more red, orange, and yellow. But in the middle of the day, you're getting all of them. So anyway, that's why you get all of those color vitamins every time you go out under sunlight. So people, you know, back then when I started teaching about this, it was just kind of coming out that UVB creates vitamin D in the body. So because again, people had been demonizing the sun for so long, it's like, oh, but we need it for vitamin D. Oh, but don't worry, you can just take vitamin D in a bottle. You know, you don't need to do the sun because the sun's going to give you cancer. So just take vitamin. We do need vitamin D, which is a hormone, by the way. It's a very important hormone in the body for all kinds of things. And we already know that with the whole thing that's going on these days, you know, if people have vitamin D levels, they don't get sick. So adequate vitamin D levels. So anyway, it's much more than just the UV on the skin to create the vitamin D. There's UVA, UVB, UVC, then there's, you know, near infrared, mid infrared, far infrared. Those are in the invisible, outside of the visible light spectrum. So every time you go out under sunlight, you're getting all of that stuff on your skin, but people weren't talking at all about the colors in the sunlight. Nobody was talking about it. Everybody's talking about, you know, UV and the harmful effects, and then near infrared and red were not even really being talked about yet. Then, I mean, I brought all that stuff to the table as well. So now everybody, you know, infrared saunas and people like near infrared saunas, which are not really near infrared saunas. But anyway, so there's all of those healing frequencies in sunshine, and that's why we respond to the red wall or the red painting or the blue, you know, blue rug or whatever it is, or that sweater that you just have to have because you love that, you know, color, or the purse that there's also other things about different colors, like green helps you give you clarity about your direction in life. So if you're going through like a turbulent time where you're like kind of confused and you don't know, you may find yourself like craving colors of green, like I just keep wanting green, you know. Anyway, I've talked to a lot of people about that. What colors are you craving? I don't know. I don't normally like green, but I've just like been buying all this green stuff lately. It's like, are you having like a period where you're trying to figure out what direction to go? Like, yes, I can't decide. Like, should I move? Should I stay? Should I go? Like, take this job? But anyway, so.
I love the messages that colors, you know, show that, you know, again, there's another daily check-in that we all can do. What are you craving? You know, what do you need? Bring more of, you know, for just a starter, start bringing those colors in because they have such huge frequencies.
Yeah.
Or, you know, get out in the sun because you're going to get blasted with all of them.
Yeah, exactly. One thing I did several years ago, I created, like I turned several of my paintings into full set, like high resolution screensavers. So people could download them, and it's like, it doesn't matter. Like, you don't have to, like, I don't know what color I'm craving, but you look through the paintings, you're like, oh, this is the one that's jumping out at me. So then, you know, it's like, and then you can actually use it as a balancing tool and stare at them, and they bring you back into balance. So I've had so many, yeah. So
are those still on your website?
Yeah, if people go to either one of my websites, but catalyticcolor.com is where all the stuff about color and light and the Rejuvenator is Catalytic Color, CATALYTICCOLOR.com, catalyticcolor.com, like catalytic converter, but same spelling, but catalytic color, COLOR, the American spelling, .com. And then if they sign,
I want to pause there. You know, whoever is listening to this, definitely check out Leanne's website because she's just such a wealth of knowledge in so many different areas. As you can see through this podcast, that we're not even touching upon half of what she's been through. You know, we are kind of skipping a little bit here and there because she has brought so many amazing products that are healing to the environment. So again, just one more time, share what it is, catalyticcolor.com. Yeah, I had it written down. See, well, you can put it in your notes. I'll put it up too.
Yeah, so catalyticcolor.com has videos that I teach about the science of color and light, stuff like that. Some of my medical conference lectures are on there. The Bulletproof lecture is on there. and if you sign up for my mailing list, that's a pop-up when it comes up on the screen, then you get to download all the screensavers.
Leanne, let's talk more about the color spectrums and getting ourselves into nature. What is your thoughts here, as I know you have many?
So when I started teaching about the science of color and light, I knew that I had to in order to be able to shift a paradigm for people, I can't throw color therapy, light therapy, energy medicine, sound healing. I can't throw it all together at the same time, because it's just too many paradigms to shift, too many things to try to, change for people. Like, it literally is shifting a paradigm. So I started with color and light. Then a few years ago, I started teaching about the quantum healing aspect. That's vitally important in healing, because everybody then glommed on to what's like, okay, light therapy, great, you can do all this stuff with light. It's like, yes, but it has its limitations, so it can only do so much. It's like sunlight, yeah, is way better than getting sunlight in nature is way better than sunlight in the middle of New York City, for example. So if you're sunbathing in the middle of New York City, you have all of those negative effects, chaotic energy coming from the people, pollution, Wi-Fi, EMF, and that sort of thing. So a lot of net negative energy in the city. You don't have any of the healing energy that's found in nature in the middle of New York City. So yeah, you can lay under the sun in the middle of New York City and you'll get some benefit from the sun, but you're not getting any of the healing energies that you find in nature. So that's why when you go out into nature, it doesn't matter if it's sunny or it's overcast, you feel that amazing energy when you're surrounded by a forest, or you're, walking in the mountains, and you've got like a stream running by you, or you're like by a pristine ocean, not like in the middle of Los Angeles, but an ocean where you're like, there's not like a huge giant city right nearby. But even so, even in big cities where you can you can still feel that energy from the ocean. It's just stronger if you're not, by a giant city right behind you. But that feeling that you get when you go into the mountains or in nature, and that it's energizing but calming at the same time. It's not stimulating in the sense like drinking coffee. It gives you energy because you're getting all that life force energy that's found in nature. Life force energy, chi, prana, 0 point energy. I mean, the stuff that Tesla was talking about tapping into, it's an infinite energy source. We actually have access to that all the time, but people get so depleted because they don't spend enough time in nature. They don't spend time walking on the earth with bare feet. They don't spend time even getting sunshine. So the problem where people start getting illness and disease, and then they have high stress jobs and they're not eating a clean, healthy diet, or, it's like, the stress is a huge thing, because all of those things are like siphons. They're siphoning off that life force energy. So it's like, all these things that are depleting you day by day. And then you get more and more depleted, and that's where illness and disease start to set into the physical body, because the energy body, which is where the illness and disease starts to get depleted. It's like you've got your life force energy gas tank, and it starts going down and down and down and down. And then people just are kind of like running on fumes throughout. They go to sleep at night. They don't sleep very well. They wake up in the morning. They wish they could just sleep the whole day, but they have to get up and go to work. So they drink caffeine and they take other stimulants. They take things to artificially get them through the day to give them those artificial energy sources, instead of like nourishing and nurturing the energy body, so that was where it's like, the science of light therapy is one aspect of it, and color therapy, very, very important. But without the additional healing energies, that life force energy, it's like you're treating symptoms again. You're not getting to the root of the problem. You're not filling up the gas tank, because the light isn't going to fill up the gas tank. You need those energy frequencies that are found in nature, those quantum healing energies. And again, there's different names for them, but it's the same thing. It's life force energy in English. It's like, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's the thing that differentiates you, Shannon, sitting here talking to me, animated, you're alive, and you know, Shannon dead, laying on a slab, you know, when there's no life. Your body is still the same. Your body is still and this is the thing about Western medicine. It doesn't distinguish a cadaver from a living body. They study cadavers. Like, it's like, okay, well, that gives you the mechanics, but what about the animation part, you know? So the energy body is where the illness and disease starts. That's where, you know, everything starts. So I knew that in order to actually have full true healing effects, you can't just take a light and shine a light on the body. You can see some benefit from that, but it's not going to provide full system, full root level healing benefits. So when I, again, reluctantly, you know, it's like all these things, like I started to say earlier, it's like, you know, I was teaching about all this stuff, validating the science of light therapy, and all my medical doctor friends are like, Leanne, you have to make your own light therapy device. And I'm like, nope, absolutely not. I have no interest in manufacturing anything. I don't want to sell anything. I just want to teach people. I don't want to sell anything. I don't want to do it. I realized afterwards I didn't want to do anything that felt like engineering. So anyway, long story short, it finally got to the point that there were so many people selling like so-called light therapy devices that were actually making people worse, and that were at best weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing, or they were providing minimal benefits. And everybody's emailing me, Leanne, I watched your videos. I totally, like, everything you said resonates. And so I went online and I tried to find something that would work. And I spent $6,000 on this thing. And I did what they told me to do. And it didn't have any benefit, or it made me feel worse. So over and over again, I kept hearing that. So that was where I finally, it's like after 10 years of doing this, almost 11 years, validating the science of light therapy for the masses in the medical community, launched my own product line just 5 years ago now. So, and it just started taking, it was like the paintings, you know, it just, I launched at the Bulletproof Conference. About 300 people bought during that. Would have sold a lot more if we'd had a better system to take orders, because there were like at least a couple hundred people that was like, I really tried to order, but I couldn't get, there were like too many people around your booth. But anyway, so, and then ever since then, it's been word of mouth. It's been people telling, you know, they told 2 friends and so on, because, and again, it's that pay it forward. I don't have an affiliate program. People go out of their way to help others because it's like, this worked for me, and it's a huge game changer. So the important thing, when people want to really heal, you have to spend time in nature. You know, I made the device that you can use this and experience full healing if you live in a city or wherever you are, because people get so depleted and out of balance. But the ideal scenario is, yeah, okay, use the Rejuvenator for full healing, you know, for keeping your batteries recharged if you live in a city, but do make every effort to spend, you know, reconnect with nature. That's where we thrive. That's where, you know, like we evolved to live and thrive under sunlight and out in nature. These big cities are an artificial, you know, addition that came along many, you know, thousands of years later. So even, you know, when villages and larger villages, you know, people still had connection with nature. They were working the land and stuff, but we've lost so much of that being, you know, in this digital world. So it's really, really beneficial for people not only to get sunlight, but also to spend time in nature. So those are the 2 big takeaways, that because you need to keep your life force energy gas tank topped off. If you're already sick and depleted, that's where, you know, when the Rejuvenator, you know, it's like we have people that have healed, like you name it, everything. Life-threatening cancer, stage 4 cancer, brain glioblastoma, you know, tons of people with severe Lyme disease, you know, long-standing Lyme, that now have their life back. They, you know, had this complete dysfunction for sometimes decades. What are some other, thyroid dysfunction and stuff like that, but not just that, and then all the anti-aging benefits, you know, skin beautification and stuff like that, the energy that you get from it. So, but it's still like, you know, if everybody spent time in nature and in sunshine and scheduled in time to do that in their regular lives, not just 1 week of vacation once a year, but as a part of a daily, no, maybe not a daily routine, but like at least every few days to focus on, I mean, ideally daily, yes. But if you live in a city, it's just not very practical. But, you know, you getting out and being able now to drive and go to Mount Shasta and stuff like that, that's phenomenal. So, but being able to connect with nature, that also keeps us connected to source, because that's where you can go out in nature and all of a sudden you start getting these brilliant ideas that you don't get when you're in the city, because you're not connected to source as much. Yeah. So you can be, of course, you can train yourself to do anything and to overcome any obstacles. It's just easier, and it's in our true nature to be, you know, surrounded by these healing energies from sunshine and nature, not just one or the other. But anyway, so that's kind of my summary.
Yeah, no, I mean,
I probably missed a bunch of things.
Drive it home. No, it's, again, everything we've spoken upon. It's the theme has been so beautiful, from creating to manifesting to, you know, just being open to these other modalities that are all around us for healing. And they go right back to the most natural. It's getting in nature, it's being in the color spectrums that, you know, we have all these beautiful elements around us that we can utilize daily. And so you've taken us through your story of how you've been in flow state with all of them, you know, utilizing what's natural and at your disposal, and dancing with it. So again, it's
like that. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, that's a perfect, you know, metaphor, because it's really dancing through life instead of feeling like, you know, because some people get this feeling like I'm constantly struggling. It's because you keep trying to you use all your energy to go through those brick walls, instead of, like, you know, following your inner voice, your spirit, guidance, consciousness, whatever you want to call it, God. For other people, you know, it's like whatever label, Yahweh, Buddha, whoever it is that, you know, whatever you want to call it, we have this infinite wisdom within ourselves that we can access at any time. You know, I like to use the example of the atom touching the finger of God painting. That's what it's like when you're tapped in and you're in flow, that you can access all of that information. It's information, energy, and abundance that's all around us. And it's just our belief systems that prevent us from being able to access it. Because again, we start getting conditioned from a very early age. And, you know, a lot of people they take on that conditioning, and it's hard not to. It's like the form of slow brainwashing, and you know, all the stuff that you get fed from the media and pharmaceuticals and blah, blah, blah. Anyway.
But it is, again, it's, you know, I think of myself as a quantum computer, a light ship. And when things get chaotic or discordance, for me, it's always going back to what's natural. It's always going back to nature. We have the tools, and the tools are going to be very accessible at all times. And so trusting, you know, what is right in front of you, because again, each and every one of us, that flow state is like tapping you on the nose. Each and every day. It's like, are you gonna, you know, get on your phone and start scrolling for 5 hours, or are you gonna just allow, you know, what wants to be shown? And we're given that every moment of the day. And Leanne, I just want to thank you, because you've taken us on such a journey of utilizing every aspect of ourselves, you know, really, you know, touching upon the senses and the colors and the intuition. And it's so needed at this time. Again, it's, you know, we're in a time of being truly programmed into just pure nonsense. And it's really just taking our sovereignty and power within, right? And your hands aren't tied. Just start getting quiet and, you know, trusting what does want to come through. All this other repetitive shit's getting kind of old. So let's start creating from what's new and what's being asked of each and every one of us. And Leanne, I just honor you for taking that call, because you're healing thousands and thousands of people. And like I said, we're going to do another podcast on the Rejuvenator, because that product in itself needs a couple hours.
He has to talk about all the yeah, amazing healing stories too. I mean, but yeah, but thank you, Shannon. This has been wonderful. And yeah, it's been amazing sharing with you. And you have such an amazing story yourself. So I always like that when people, you know, we find each other, and your community, you know, finds this things that are resonating at the same frequency, and you come to learn the things that you are ready for. When, you know, it's like when your vibration is raising, you know, it's like you're getting at that higher frequency, and then we start, you know, attracting those people that are resonating at the same frequencies, and that's how then we build and grow this whole community, and then that spreads further. So it's all part of that, you know, putting that energy out. And just a big part of it is just people having the awareness that every single one of us has the ability to affect this change, not only in our own lives, but on the whole planet, because we are energy transmitters, we're energy portals, and we're energy, you know, receivers and emitters. So all of that, every thought that we have goes out into the universe, and we have 100% control over our thoughts.
Beautiful.
Every single moment. And it's always we get to choose what we want to focus our energies, what we want to hold on to, what we want to release.
Amen to that. We get to choose.
Yeah.
We always have that. All right, my dear. Any more last words before I tie it up, or?
No, but I have to say that having pets is very calming as well.
Yes, I super agree, and I love your cat is such a snuggle bug.
She is. She wasn't when she was a little kitten. When I first adopted her, she's become a snuggle. They, you know, animals will adapt to whatever their owners are like. So yeah, she's like, can I be in your lap all the time now?
Oh,
Thank you very
yeah.
much. Yeah.
Well, I
So,
just want to thank the audience that's with us today. This is Quantum Heart Conversations, and I am with Leanne Venier.
yeah.
And
Yay.
it's just been an incredible conversation, and we will continue with this. So bye for now. Thank you.
Bye.